There are times in life when it feels like everything is falling apart, like there's no hope, no second chance, and no way forward. But then, something small happens. Maybe you hear a line in a reel, read a quote, or a friend says something that hits you deep inside. And suddenly, a tiny voice whispers, "You can still turn things around." So, take a breath. Don't worry, just take one small step forward. That's exactly what today's book summary is about, reminding you that no matter where you are in life, it's never too late to start again. You can still build the life you dream of. You have more power than you think. Welcome to Audiobook 101, where we bring you powerful book summaries that don't just inform, they transform. Here you'll listen, learn, and apply practical ideas to create real change in your life. And today's book is truly special. The 3 Alarms by Eric Partaker is more than just a guide. It's a lifeline for anyone trying to balance health, work, and relationships. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Eric faced the same pain and confusion many of us did. He felt lost, overwhelmed, and unsure how to move forward. The stress of managing his job and personal life at the same time became too much. And honestly, how can we be our best selves when the whole world feels broken? But here's what Eric realized. Tough times aren't the end. They're an invitation to grow stronger. Life doesn't stop for anyone. It won't wait until you're ready, so we must learn to rise even when things are hard. If you want to thrive, not just survive, you need balance, and for that you must take control of 3 important parts of life: your health, your work, and your relationships. When these areas are in sync, you feel powerful, focused, and fulfilled. So how do you actually do that? Eric discovered a simple method that changed everything: setting 3 alarms on his phone, one for health, one for work, one for relationships. It may sound too easy, but these alarms became powerful reminders of who he wanted to be each day. In this summary, you'll learn how these 3 alarms can help you live with intention, stay focused on what matters, and become the best version of yourself without giving up the things you love. So sit back, relax, and let's explore the 3 alarms, a small daily habit that can lead to a truly extraordinary life.
Peak performance traps. Imagine there's a button right in front of you, and the moment you press it, you instantly become the best version of yourself. Would you press it? Of course you would. Anyone would. We all want to become our highest selves, confident, successful, balanced, and fulfilled. But here's the real question. If becoming our best self is something we all want, why is it so hard to actually get there? Eric Partaker calls this state of total alignment and growth peak performance. It means you're not just doing well in one area. You're thriving in all of them. You're working your dream job. You have no money worries. And you're in a healthy, loving relationship with someone who understands you. Sounds like a perfect life, right? And if you already have that, congratulations. You're living what many only dream of. But if not, don't worry. According to Eric, there are 3 common traps that quietly stop us from reaching that peak. Let's explore them one by one. The first trap: lack of intentionality. Many people say they want to be successful, but when asked what that really means, they struggle to answer. Just saying, "I want to be successful," is not enough. It's vague, incomplete. You can't move toward a goal if you don't know what that goal looks like. That's why it's so important to take a pause and reflect. Ask yourself, what does success mean for me? You don't have to be super specific right away. But having some clarity is key. For example, saying, "I want to be a respected manager in the next 3 years," gives you a real target to aim for. That's the power of intentionality. The second trap: perfectionism. Here's something most people forget: you will make mistakes. Not just once or twice, but probably hundreds of times. And that's okay. Mistakes are not the enemy. Perfectionism is. When you expect yourself to be perfect, you stop taking action. You hesitate. You delay. You quit. But real growth only happens when you try, fail, learn, and improve. Every mistake is a stepping stone toward mastery, if you allow it to be. The third trap: overstructuring your life. We often believe that every single day should be highly productive or filled with breakthroughs. But the truth is, life doesn't work that way. There will be boring days. There will be days when things don't go as planned. That doesn't mean you're failing. That's just life. Peak performance isn't about being amazing every single day. It's about showing up even on the average days. It's about doing the work even when you don't feel like it. On those slow, dull, or chaotic days, the only thing that matters is this: did you do what needed to be done? 3 domains of a fulfilled life. Many of the world's most successful people take pride in how hard they've worked to reach where they are. They often talk about pushing themselves to the limit, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Take Elon Musk, for example. He's the founder of SpaceX and several other groundbreaking companies. In an interview, Musk once revealed that he used to work 17 hours a day, 7 days a week. But Elon Musk isn't alone. In today's fast-paced world, many people treat rest like a luxury and glorify constant hustle. But here's what research tells us: people who get only 6 hours of sleep function just as poorly as those who've been awake for 48 hours straight. They're exhausted, unfocused, and far from their best. If success costs you your health, is it really worth it? True peak performance is not about destroying your body or sacrificing your well-being. Imagine reaching your highest goals, but constantly feeling sick or burned out because you never allowed your body to rest. That's not success. That's slow self-destruction. Living a meaningful and fulfilling life means doing well in every area of life, not just one. Sadly, many people grow up believing that happiness must come at the cost of something else, that you have to suffer to succeed. But what if that's not true? What if getting proper sleep is not laziness, but strength? What if taking care of your health actually helps you become more productive, not less? Stop believing that you can outrun the consequences of poor habits. Time doesn't wait, and the body keeps score. Sometimes, by the time we realize the damage done by our lifestyle, it's already too late. So what exactly should you focus on if you want to live a truly fulfilled life? According to Eric Partaker, it all comes down to mastering 3 domains: work, health, and relationships. These 3 areas are like the legs of a tripod. Remove one, and the whole thing starts to fall. You can't neglect one domain and expect the other 2 to thrive. If you only focus on work, your health and relationships will eventually suffer. And if your relationships fall apart, no amount of career success will feel satisfying. This idea isn't new. The Austrian neurologist and psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, best known for his book Man's Search for Meaning, wrote about it decades ago. Frankl was a Holocaust survivor who spent years imprisoned in Nazi concentration camps. During that time, he observed something extraordinary. The people who survived weren't always the strongest or the smartest. They were the ones who had found meaning in their suffering, through their work, their love for others, or the way they responded to pain. The meaning of pain is different for everyone. For an athlete, it might mean muscles growing stronger. For a student, it could mean studying long nights to pursue a dream. In each case, the pain had purpose. And just like that, every domain of your life is deeply connected. It's a domino effect. If you become a better listener with your child, you'll likely become a better leader at work. If you take care of your health, you'll have more energy and patience for your family and your team. Every action affects everything else. When your work, health, and relationships are in harmony, life becomes more balanced, meaningful, and powerful than you ever imagined. Identity-based change. You don't have to sacrifice your health, your relationships, or your happiness to reach your full potential. That old belief that success requires burnout, exhaustion, or pain is outdated. In today's world, there's a smarter, more sustainable way to achieve greatness. According to Eric Partaker, the path to peak performance is built on 3 powerful pillars: identity-based change, productivity planning, and productivity execution. Let's begin with the first one, identity-based change, because it forms the foundation of everything else. There's a powerful story about a man named Neil Fiore. He was an experienced skier in his 40s, good at what he did, but stuck. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't seem to break past a certain level in his performance. He had reached a plateau in his skiing career and couldn't figure out how to improve. One day, during a lesson, his ski instructor gave him a strange challenge. Don't ski as Neil today. Ski as Hans, a world-class Swiss alpine skier. So Neil did. He mentally stepped into Hans's shoes, his confidence, his posture, his technique, and something incredible happened. His skiing instantly improved. That simple mental shift pushed him past his plateau, not because he trained harder or tried longer, but because he changed who he believed he was, at least for that moment. That's the power of identity. Instead of forcing yourself to change through willpower alone, try becoming someone new in your mind first. It's much easier to act like a focused, high-performing person once you believe you are one. This is exactly what Eric did to reach his own peak performance. He imagined his heroic self, the version of him who didn't procrastinate, who stayed calm under pressure, who was focused, creative, and disciplined. Once that image was clear, he started aligning his daily actions with that version. He visualized how his heroic self would think, act, and respond to challenges. And then he simply mirrored it. Here's the truth. Change doesn't start with action. It starts with identity. When you shift your inner self-image, your behavior naturally follows. You begin to think differently, plan differently, and live differently. And over time, you grow into the person you once only imagined. So if you want real transformation, don't just change your habits. Change who you believe you are. Adopt the mindset of your future self. See yourself as the person you want to become. And then act like it. Because the fastest way to grow into your potential is to start living from it today. Productivity planning. Procrastination. It's one of the biggest enemies of progress. The more we put things off, the more frustrated and overwhelmed we feel. But here's the truth. Beating procrastination isn't about having superhuman willpower or laser-sharp focus. It's about having a smart system. You don't need to push harder. You just need to plan smarter. The best way to stay productive isn't by forcing yourself to be disciplined every second, but by designing your day in advance, so that even when motivation fades, your structure keeps you moving forward. Eric Partaker calls this productivity planning, and it all starts the night before. Every evening, before his day ends, Eric sits down and writes out 3 key tasks he needs to accomplish the next day. He doesn't just jot them down on a to-do list. He schedules them directly into his calendar, like fixed appointments. This simple act turns intention into commitment. And once that's done, he closes his workday. He stops thinking about work entirely and shifts his focus to the other important parts of his life, his health and his relationships. This is part of his night routine, and it's just as important as any business strategy. In the morning, his routine sets the tone for the day. It includes journaling, revisiting the 3 tasks he planned the night before, and reminding himself of his heroic identity, the best version of himself that he's striving to become. Now, you don't have to copy Eric's routine step by step. In fact, he encourages people not to. What matters more is that you take inspiration and create your own version, a structure that works for your lifestyle. After setting his mindset for the day, Eric visualizes how his heroic self would show up. He mentally walks through potential obstacles he might face and how he would handle them. This mental rehearsal prepares him to act with clarity and confidence. Then, he meditates for 10 minutes to ground his mind. He reads for 20 minutes to feed his brain. And finally, he exercises for at least an hour to energize his body. Now, you don't have to be as intense or structured as Eric. Your routine might look completely different, and that's perfectly fine. The goal isn't to be perfectly productive. The goal is to find what works for you and stick to it. Remove the things that waste your time. Build habits that move you forward and create a daily rhythm that supports your goals. Because in the end, consistency beats intensity. A simple routine, followed daily, can lead to extraordinary results. Productivity execution. In the last chapter, we focused on planning, designing your day, and setting up a routine to guide how your time flows. But planning is only one part of the equation. Staying productive, executing those plans, is a whole different game. To stay productive, Eric Partaker relies on a powerful idea known as the Pareto Principle, or the 80-20 rule. This principle states that 80% of your results come from just 20% of your efforts. Let's make that clear with an example. Imagine you have to write a research paper. When you spend time choosing your topic, identifying your target audience, and laying out a basic structure or literature review, those are your 20% efforts. But those small, focused actions account for 80% of the actual paper. Why? Because you've already defined your direction, your goals, and the foundation. The rest is just about putting the pieces together. By doing a few things right, you avoid wasting time on things that don't matter. So before starting any task, ask yourself this powerful question. What's the one thing I can do right now that will make everything else easier or even unnecessary? Now let's bring this idea into real life. Take the health domain as an example. Eric wanted to get fit and healthy, so he started researching various health strategies. He read countless books, scrolled through endless online articles, and tried different routines, hoping to find the perfect fitness plan. But in doing all that, he was wasting time. He eventually realized that even in health, the 80-20 rule applies. He didn't need complex plans. He needed to focus on the vital few actions that drive the biggest results. So what's the 20% that brings 80% of the health benefits? It's simple. Get at least 8 hours of quality sleep. Eat clean, balanced meals. Exercise regularly. That's it. These 3 habits may seem basic, but they are the foundation of a healthy life. They do the heavy lifting. Once you build them into your routine, you begin to feel stronger, more energized, and more focused. The same principle applies to work and relationships. Focus on the small set of actions that produce the biggest impact. cut the noise. Prioritize the meaningful. With the 80-20 rule, you don't need to do more. You need to do what matters most. And that's the real secret to productivity. Less effort, more results. The Healthiest You. Now that you understand how to reach peak performance and how to avoid the traps that most people fall into, congratulations. You've already come a long way. But now it's time to bring all this together and apply it in real life. You may remember what we've emphasized again and again. A truly fulfilled life requires giving proper attention to 3 core domains: health, work, and relationships. But how do you actually divide your time between all 3? Eric Partaker came up with a simple yet powerful method. He calls it the 3 alarms. It's exactly what it sounds like. Just 3 alarms on your phone. But these aren't ordinary reminders. They're powerful identity triggers. Each alarm is linked to one of your life's core domains, and it reminds you of the kind of person you want to be in that area. You can name the alarm after your heroic identity, the ideal version of yourself. That's exactly what Eric does. At 6:30 a.m., his alarm reads, World Fitness Champion. At 9 a.m., it shifts to World's Best Coach. And at 6:30 p.m., it changes to World's Best Husband and Father. These 3 alarms guide him to stay aligned with his values throughout the day, focusing on his health, career, and relationships. You can do the same. Your heroic titles might be different. Maybe yours are energetic CEO, loving partner, or disciplined student. The key is that they should mean something to you. They should reflect the values and qualities you want to embody. Now, Eric doesn't actually believe he is the world's best fitness champion or father, but those alarm labels act as daily reminders of the person he's working to become. His day begins with the first alarm: World Fitness Champion. That's when Eric focuses on his health. He might not be the fittest man on the planet, but when that alarm goes off, he steps into that identity. He imagines what that person would do. That's the version of himself that gets out of bed and heads to the gym. And this mindset gives him the energy and purpose to care for his body. He adopts the values that a real champion would have: resilience, discipline, and a hunger for challenge. He doesn't look for shortcuts. He finds meaning in the struggle. Now you might be wondering, how does he actually motivate himself on days when he doesn't feel like working out? Here's his trick. Every step is intentional. Let's say he's exhausted and still has 15 minutes left on the treadmill. He pauses and asks himself, what would a world fitness champion do right now? He pictures the champion pushing through the fatigue, and that thought gives him the strength to keep going. The pain becomes a symbol of progress. Sometimes, Eric even imagines he's being watched by a sports commentator. Look at Eric! You can see the exhaustion on his face, but he's still going strong. This inner monologue turns effort into something heroic. For Eric, exercise is the 20% effort that brings 80% of the results. It not only boosts his physical health, it also makes it easier for him to stick to a clean diet and avoid junk food. Just like the 80-20 rule suggests, focusing on the few vital actions gives him the greatest returns. Your version of this might be different, and that's okay. You don't have to copy Eric's exact techniques. You just need to discover what works for you and then commit to it daily. But what about those moments when you don't feel like living up to your ideal self? It happens to Eric, too. He has a simple mental technique that helps him stay on track, something he learned from the psychologist Rollo May. Whenever he's tempted, like suddenly craving ice cream late at night, he doesn't immediately say no. Instead, he takes a pause. He stops and asks, what would my heroic self do? That small pause is enough. It creates space between impulse and action. It gives him time to remember who he's trying to become. And more often than not, that pause is all he needs to walk away from the temptation. This is how you become the healthiest version of yourself. Not by being perfect, but by making small, intentional choices that align with your greater identity. The Wealthiest You. At exactly 9 a.m., Eric's second heroic identity comes to life. World's Best Coach. That's when his second alarm rings, reminding him to step into the mindset of a leader who is intentional, inspiring, and deeply committed to serving others. As an executive coach, Eric spends his day talking to clients, designing strategies, building presentations, and coming up with creative solutions. He challenges his mind constantly. And just like with his fitness goals, there are days when even Eric doesn't feel like giving his best at work. Because, let's face it, a job is still a job. It can be tiring, boring, and repetitive. But instead of giving in to those feelings, Eric turns inward and asks himself a simple question. What would the world's best coach do right now? And the answer is always the same. Keep going. Finish the task. Show up with excellence. So that's exactly what he does. Not every day will feel perfect. Some days you'll want to postpone, to say, I'll do it tomorrow. And honestly, sometimes rest is the smart choice. But more often than not, what we need isn't rest. It's momentum. The best way out of mental fatigue is often through focused action. Following your heroic identity at work takes discipline. It's not always easy. But here's the good news. The more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. With every small win, your confidence grows. The version of you that once felt distant slowly becomes real. Eric noticed something powerful. The closer he got to embodying the world's best coach, the less he struggled with procrastination. He didn't have to force himself anymore. He simply listened to the voice of his heroic self, and that voice pulled him into action. You can look at it this way. Every time you give your best at work, you're making a deposit into your future. Each hour of focus, each completed task, each difficult meeting you push through adds up to a more profitable, more fulfilling future. But Eric doesn't just focus on doing the job. He focuses on becoming the best in his field. That's a big difference. He talks to CEOs. He asks them how they succeeded. He studies leadership. He experiments, learns, and evolves. He constantly looks for ways to grow, not just as a coach, but as a performer, a communicator, and a leader. He also invites feedback from his team and clients, knowing that feedback is a gift for growth. Becoming your best self isn't easy. But when you show up fully, when you give your best even when it's hard, that's when the effort becomes valuable. That's when your work stops being just a job and starts becoming part of your legacy. The Most Loving You. At 6:30 p.m., Eric's final alarm of the day rings. It's titled, World's Best Husband and Dad. And if you ask Eric, this is the alarm that means the most to him. You see, 2 years ago, his marriage nearly ended. His wife had reached a breaking point and decided she was ready to leave. Eric had become so consumed with work that she felt invisible in his life. He had stopped showing up, not just as a husband, but as a father too. Eric admits he had been neglecting his family. When his wife asked for help, he would say, "I'll get to it this weekend." When his kids asked him to play, he'd reply, "Not now, I have work to finish." But then, something shifted. The 3 alarms concept helped him realize just how much he was missing out on. It didn't fix everything overnight. Like all good things, rebuilding his family relationships took time, but it was a journey he committed to, with heart and intention. Eric began telling his wife how much he loved her, not just in words, but in actions. He made her coffee. He took her out on date nights. He showed up. With his kids, he became present. He played games with them. He read books aloud. He watched movies by their side, not just as a parent, but as a companion. Was it always easy? Not at all. Some days there were arguments. There were tough conversations. But instead of reacting out of frustration, Eric would pause and ask himself, what would the world's best husband and dad do right now? That simple question changed everything. Instead of snapping or walking away, Eric would stop, just for a moment. He would take a pause, because in that pause he was consulting his heroic self. We all lose control when we're angry. We say things we regret. We act in ways that don't align with who we want to be. But that small pause, it can save relationships. It can calm your mind. It gives you the space to choose love over ego. So how do you know when you've truly become your best self? Eric explains that becoming your heroic version happens in 5 stages. Stage 1, awareness. This is when you begin to consciously work toward becoming your best self. You realize the importance of prioritizing your health, your work, and your relationships every single day. Stage 2, occasional slip-ups. You still make mistakes, and that's okay. Mistakes are part of growth. The important thing is to ask yourself, what would my best self do in this moment? Stage 3, the pause. This is when you start catching yourself before you react. You take a brief pause, you reflect, you act from intention rather than emotion. Stage 4, mastering the pause. At this stage, the pause becomes second nature. You instinctively choose the response that brings out your best, not the one that brings out your worst. Stage 5, the nirvana moment. This is the breakthrough. Something challenging happens, something that would have triggered the old version of you. But now, you no longer need to pause. You naturally respond in a way that's calm, healthy, and productive. The best version of you is no longer something you're trying to become. It's who you already are. Conclusion. Let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've explored. First, you learned why most people never become the best version of themselves. There are 3 common obstacles that block peak performance: a lack of intentionality, the trap of perfectionism, and having too much rigid structure in life. Understanding and avoiding these traps is the first step toward real growth. Second, we explored the 3 essential domains of a fulfilled life: health, work, and relationships. If you want to live a life that feels meaningful, not just busy, you must give balanced attention to all 3. Think of these domains like a set of dominoes. If one falls, it affects the others. If you neglect one, the others will begin to suffer too. Third, you discovered the 3 tools you need to reach your full potential: identity-based change, knowing and acting like your heroic self; productivity planning, designing a routine that sets you up for success; and productivity execution, using the Pareto Principle to focus on what truly matters. These aren't just theories. They apply to every area of life. Then, we explored the heart of this method: the 3 alarms. Each alarm represents a core area: health, wealth, your work, and love, your relationships. When you set these alarms and name them after your heroic identity, you train your mind to show up as your best self each day. Becoming the healthiest, wealthiest, and most loving version of yourself is possible, but you'll need to show up every single day, in every domain. Yes, it will be hard. That's why your heroic self matters. It's the version of you that will guide you forward when things get tough. It will remind you of what's truly important, not just for today, but for your future. Remember, success doesn't have to come at the cost of your health or your relationships. You can have all three, but you'll need to make intentional choices and take consistent action. Rest when you truly need it, but don't procrastinate, and don't leave any of your three domains behind. When you finally reach your peak performance, be proud of yourself. You've earned it. But don't get too comfortable. Keep moving forward. Keep learning. Keep nurturing what you've built, because the moment you stop growing, you stop leading. And as long as you keep giving your best, you'll stay your best. Thank you for listening to today's summary of The 3 Alarms by Eric Partaker. I hope this inspired you to stop, think, and take that first step toward becoming the best version of yourself, whether that means getting stronger, focusing better at work, or being more present with your loved ones. If this summary gave you something to think about, or even a little push forward, then it's already done its job. Now it's your turn. Set your alarms, step into your best self, and start building the life you truly want. If you enjoyed this summary, please like, share, and subscribe to Audiobook 101. We share powerful ideas from powerful books every week. And before you go, let us know in the comments. Which area will you focus on first? Health, work, or relationships? Until next time, stay focused, stay balanced, and keep growing. You're not here to just get by. You're here to lead, to love, and to live fully.